The FA, the Football Association, had banned women from playing soccer for more than 50 years, but it's not until now that the women's game is getting more recognition, and so should the women's games be played in the same ground as the men's team. The FIFA Women's World Cup has greatly increased the popularity of women's soccer, which has experienced enormous growth and success in recent years, not only in popularity between nations, but also economically. Even so, there is still a difference in how women's and men's soccer are treated, especially when it comes to the locations where they play, where women's usually play in smaller venues and men in bigger venues very often. Stadiums are mainly built for the men's team, but teams such as Arsenal have stated that the stadium is for the team and not only for the men, and are trying to introduce more of women games around the stadium. By investing in women's soccer facilities, it can encourage the game to an expansion, resulting in higher earnings and more business perspectives, which would be beneficial for the game of women's soccer. It is possible to draw in a wider range of spectators by holding women matches alongside the men's, which might increase ticket sales, sponsorships, and media rights to broadcast more of the women's fixtures. With more economic investments, there is more demand for the women's game. Therefore, there are more economic gains, which will make it easier for an overall growth and sustainability inside women's soccer. Women should have the same access to first-rate facilities and locations that the men do, because in the end of the day they are all playing the same sport and trying to achieve their goals and trying to be the best athlete they can be in the game. Many believe that the women may benefit from improved facilities, resources, and exposures when they play on the same fields, which would make them be less of a risk of having more serious injuries and ending careers injuries than the men. Equitable access to sports means providing opportunities for participation regardless of gender, socioeconomic background, ability, or other factors. This creates gender equality by ensuring that everyone has a fair chance to engage in sports. When it comes to the facilities for training, maintenance, athletic training, and locker rooms, the women's might require different resources than men, mostly because their body are built different and have different needs. The budgets and the logistics of each team may be strained if resources are allocated to accommodate men's and women's teams in the same stadiums. One of the main points is that there are worries about possibility differences in spectators' attendance and revenue from men's and women's content, but that have been proven wrong with having sell-out stadiums for the women's games. Larger venues, meaning the big stadiums, are usually utilized for the men's games, which might not be able to hold full attendance for the women's events, would result in a loss for the team and venue owners. But with the last World Cup in 2023 held in Australia and New Zealand with an amount of 32 countries, which is the most countries that ever participated in this tournament, shows that the women's game is growing and that more countries are being able to participate in the biggest soccer competition that ever will be. The attendance of the 2023 Women's World Cup broke all of the records held in previous tournaments, with a total amount of almost 2 million people in total attendance, showing that the women can bring people to their games. Venue selections for the women's soccer games should be based on general principles of equality and notwithstanding certain obstacles and factors that are implemented inside society thinking of women's games. There are several good reasons to promote women's soccer players using the same fields as men, including promoting inclusivity, dispelling prejudice, and accelerating the economic and social growth of women's soccer. In order to successfully integrate women's soccer into shared venues and address practical difficulties, collaborative efforts and strategic planning are needed inside not only women's but also the men's game. But in the end, by giving women's soccer similar chances and resources, it is not only the right thing to do but also a critical step in the direction of achieving gender equality in both sports and within our society. So, after all, should women's soccer games be played on the same grounds as the men's team?